Have you ever started to play a game and suddenly realize you're having fun in a way that feels really familiar? Like, not flashy and not really revolutionary, but just fun. Not the next big AAA MMO, but again, just fun. Because that's exactly what happened to me recently when we streamed a game called Adrullan Online Adventures, the voxel-based MMORPG that feels like EverQuest and Minecraft had a baby. And honestly, I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. So let's talk a little bit about what the game actually is. Adrullan Online Adventures is a voxel-based MMORPG that was built in the Unity engine by a team called Hidden Tree Entertainment. Development started around 2020, and the game was originally called EverQuest Online before it rebranded in 2025. And that name change actually makes a lot of sense because this game sits right at the intersection of two different worlds: classic MMORPG design and Minecraft-style visuals. So visually, you're looking at blocky, voxel-based environments. But mechanically, this is straight up old school MMO gameplay. We're talking about traditional things like slow leveling, group-focused combat, class roles, wide open world exploration, things like dungeon camping, all the stuff that MMO veterans love. And if you're somebody who grew up playing games like EverQuest or World of Warcraft, or even Minecraft, this game is going to feel familiar. I want to be straight up with you. I really didn't plan to make this video. I really didn't. We jumped into the Alpha 7 test a couple of weekends ago, and I just kind of expected to check it out, maybe stream it, and move on. But something interesting happened. When the test ended, I was supremely disappointed, and that really caught me off guard because usually when an alpha ends, you're ready to walk away. But this time I really wanted to keep playing. And that's when I realized, okay, there really is something here. This game isn't pushing the boundaries of technology. It's not redefining the MMORPG genre, but it nails something that a lot of modern MMOs struggle with. Fun, simple, honest, classic MMORPG fun. One of the biggest strengths of Adrullan Online Adventures is the community. And if you've played MMORPGs for any length of time, you know that the community can really make or break a game. Following the alpha test, the developers actually put out a lot of data, a lot of statistics, and they reported about 1,700 concurrent players across 2 different servers at max. And over 9,000 unique accounts were created to play. And I have to say, you really could feel it. There were people everywhere. Players were grouping up, trading items, sharing tips in chat. There was a lot of talking in chat, which is always usually a little entertaining to read, but also fun to see. We even ended up in an impromptu pickup group while streaming. We tried camping an open world dungeon, and yeah, unfortunately, I was absolutely the weak link. My paladin gear really was not where it needed to be, but you know what? It didn't really matter because the experience felt like classic MMO gameplay again, something that a lot of modern games just miss. The combat in Adrullan is exactly what you'd expect to find from a traditional MMORPG, right? Slow time to kill, somewhat strategic fights, really group coordination. And yes, the Holy Trinity is alive and very well. There, of course, is the tank, healers, and DPS. And yes, you can solo as well, but it is somewhat slow. And honestly, I think obviously that's intentional because the game really is designed around this idea of a core group play with the Holy Trinity and camping spots. And, those are things that I actually love that I have missed in a lot of games. One detail that I really appreciated is the loot system. If you see a monster holding an item, it drops the item. It's very simple, very logical, and incredibly satisfying. It's one of those systems that really just makes sense and that I wish a lot of modern MMORPGs would bring back. The class system is another really strong point for this game. There are 16 classes, and they include very classic things like the rogue, the druid, the necromancer, the bard, paladin. But then they do add some of their own unique ones like the war wizard or the hex knight. Classes are also tied to races, and each race has its own starting area, which I personally love just for the exploration and getting to see the different locales and sort of the uniqueness of each race, class, and starting area. It also really helps to make the world feel bigger and a lot more alive. One of the classes that we played was the Summoner, and this really stood out to me because it shows that they're also adding some of their own unique touches to traditional classes. Specific to the summoner, this class can actually rotate between 5 different summons, and that's going to include a tank summon, a DPS summon, and a heal summon. Each one has a limited duration of 30 seconds, or you can obviously kill it as well. And here's another added cool part to it. The summons actually get stronger depending on where you summon them. For example, the earth summons is stronger if you summon it while you're standing on dirt versus water or grass. That actually kind of makes sense. It also adds for some very unique encounter mechanics and ways you have to position yourself while you're fighting. Now, it's not all perfect. Don't get me wrong. This is very much still an alpha, and there are a lot of things that absolutely need work. Luckily, it's not a ton of big issues. I think the core of everything is really here, but there is one that I just really have to be very, very loud about. The biggest issue for me is the map. It doesn't have any function. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't show things like your location, your navigation, or really even any points of interest. Now, I understand that there's this idea of old school philosophy or mentality. But let's be honest, back in the late 90s, the early 2000s, when we sort of get nostalgia and we think about our old school games, a lot of this wasn't necessarily strict design choice. A lot of it was technology limitation. And when we fast forward to today, I think yet you have to understand that many players expect just basic quality of life features, even in a classic MMO structure. So I really don't think it's too much to ask for a better map. It doesn't have to be outstanding. It doesn't have to be super detailed, but just help us with actually navigating the world. The second area that I think needs a lot of improvement as well is the quest system and the UI that goes with it. It's very text heavy, which is fine. Again, that follows in that old school vein, but sometimes it's really hard to follow. And as you move around in the world, it's very easy to lose track of objectives. I know for me, when I would try to go back and understand by reading where I had to go and what I had to do, it could be very hard to just find the information, let alone be able to understand it as it's being presented to me. Those aren't deal breakers, but they are definitely things that I think need to be refined before any sort of release. One thing that surprised me during the alpha test was performance. The servers held up extremely well. I personally had absolutely no lag, there were no crashes, I had no desyncs, I really experienced no bugs either. It really didn't feel like an alpha. It felt more like a beta. It felt like a game that's missing content, not stability. That's a very good sign. Adrullan Online Adventures isn't trying to be the next massive AAA MMO. It's not chasing trends, and it's definitely not reinventing the genre. But what it is a very classic MMORPG with a very strong community, old school design, and really a surprising amount of charm. I just really wanted to keep playing and playing and playing, which I can't always say about the games that we play or stream. As a reminder, it is still an alpha state, and there's been absolutely no mention of beta or release. So because of that, really the best place for you to go is the Discord. The Discord has a lot of communication. That's where they post all of their tests, all of their statistics. They do have a website, they do have some social media, but you're going to want to join the Discord, and I'll put the link in the description. So for all of you that really want to try something new and something different, but maintain a lot of the classic nature of MMORPGs, you're definitely not going to want to miss this. As always, I appreciate everyone that hangs out with me live or here in the comments. Appreciate you watching. Give me a thumbs up, a like, make sure you're subscribed. I'll see you next time.